I want you to try something right now. Take your right hand and gently grasp the back of your left arm. That area we often call the triceps. Lift your arm out to the side, parallel to the floor, and just let the skin and tissue rest. Do you feel that? That sense of looseness or perhaps a thinning of the underlying muscle tone that simply wasn't there 10 or even 5 years ago? Most people over 60 believe this is just an inevitable part of the aging package. We're told that gravity finally wins, that our skin loses its stretch, or that our metabolism has simply slowed to a crawl. But here is the hard truth that very few doctors or trainers will tell you. What you are feeling isn't just old skin. It is a specific biological signal that your body's internal support system, the bridge between your muscle fibers and the dermis, is being quietly dismantled from the inside out. If you have been frustrated by arms that seem to lose their shape no matter how many times you walk or how much water you drink, I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes. We aren't going to talk about toning up in a gym sense. We are going to look at the 3 distinct biological mechanisms that cause this specific sagging after 55. More importantly, I am going to share a strategy to address the underlying structural integrity of that tissue. This is about more than aesthetics. It is about protecting your functional independence as you move toward your 70s and 80s. The 4th mechanism we will cover, the one I have saved for last, is the most overlooked, and it is the primary reason why standard weightlifting routines often fail to produce any real change for people in our age group. You have spent years carrying the weight of a busy life. Your arms have done the work. Now, it's time to understand exactly why they are changing and how you can reclaim that structural firmness through biology, not just endless, exhausting exercise. To understand what is happening under the skin of your arms, we have to stop looking at the saggy appearance as a surface-level problem. Think of your arm not as a single piece of anatomy, but as a complex biological sandwich. On the outside, you have the dermis. That's your skin's structural layer. Underneath that, you have a layer of subcutaneous fat, and deeper still, you have the muscle. In your 30s and 40s, these layers are tightly anchored to one another. The skin is held up by a robust, dense network of collagen and elastin, while the muscle underneath provides a firm, solid foundation. But after 55, 2 silent processes begin to accelerate. First, your body begins a process called dermal thinning. The collagen fibers that once acted like a tightly woven hammock start to break down and, more importantly, they become less efficient at repairing themselves. The cables that pull your skin taut simply lose their tension. Second, and this is what most people miss entirely, is the change in the muscle-to-fat interface. As we age, if we aren't providing the body with specific, high-quality signals, the muscle fibers, especially the fast twitch fibers in the triceps, begin to atrophy. It's not just that the muscle gets smaller. The connection between the muscle and the skin starts to weaken. It's like a tent losing its support poles. The canvas, your skin, has nowhere to go but down. Before we go any further, I want to know who is listening. Drop your city, state, or country in the comments below. When I see where you are watching from, it helps me visualize the community I'm speaking to and allows me to better tailor these explanations for the specific environments and lifestyles you're dealing with. I make it a point to read through as many of these as I can. Now, stay with me, because what I'm about to show you regarding the metabolic signal is the missing link that most people are completely unaware of. Let me tell you a story about a patient I worked with whom I'll call Eleanor. She was 62, a retired landscape architect who had spent her entire life working with her hands. When she first came to my office, she was frustrated, not because of any major health crisis, but because of what she called her disappearing strength. She told me, "Doctor, I used to be able to carry bags of mulch without a second thought. Now, I notice the skin on my arms just hangs when I reach for something on a high shelf. I feel like I'm wearing a coat that's 2 sizes too big for my own arms." Eleanor had tried everything. She had joined a local fitness class, she was eating more protein, and she was even taking collagen supplements she'd seen advertised on television. Yet, the sagging persisted. When we sat down to look at her routine, the problem wasn't that she was lazy or that she had bad genetics. The problem was that she was treating her arms like they were just a gym project, when in reality, They were reflecting a deep systemic shift in her hormonal and inflammatory landscape. See, the reason most people fail to see results isn't for a lack of effort. It's because the body at 60 requires a different language than the body at 30. When we are younger, our systems are highly responsive to almost any kind of stimulus. You walk a bit more, you lift a few light weights, and your body adapts. But after 55, your hormonal environment, specifically the balance of growth hormones and cortisol, shifts. If you are just doing repetitive, low-intensity movements, your body often perceives that as wear and tear, rather than growth stimulus. Eleanor's arms weren't sagging because she wasn't working hard enough. They were sagging because her body was in a constant, low-grade state of inflammatory signaling. Her skin wasn't getting the building blocks it needed, and her muscle fibers were being signaled to save energy rather than build structure. It's a subtle but profound difference. Once we changed the quality of her inputs, the specific timing and the specific type of tension, everything shifted. It wasn't about more time in the gym, it was about changing the biological conversation her body was having with her skin. To truly reverse this, we must move past the idea that sagging is merely an issue of loose skin. We have to address the metabolic engine that maintains the triceps. The triceps muscle is unique. It is the largest muscle group in your arm, and because of its position, it is often the most neglected in daily movement. As we cross the 55-year mark, our bodies enter a phase where we become anabolically resistant. This is a physiological term that means your muscle fibers require a stronger, more targeted signal to initiate the repair and strengthening process than they did in your youth. Think of your muscle cells like a battery that is slightly harder to charge. If the signal you send, through your activity or your nutrition, is too weak, the battery simply stays at a low level. That is why simple, repetitive motions like waving your hand or walking with light, non-challenging movements do absolutely nothing for the structural firmness of the arm. They don't cross the threshold of stimulus required to tell your body, "I need this muscle to be stronger." Furthermore, we have to talk about the role of the subcutaneous fat layer. In younger years, this fat is distributed evenly. However, as our metabolic efficiency shifts, we tend to see a redistribution where the connective tissue holding that fat in place becomes less elastic. This is largely driven by insulin sensitivity and the way your body manages glucose. When your body is struggling to manage blood sugar effectively, it creates an environment of oxidative stress. This stress directly inhibits the fibroblasts, the cells responsible for producing collagen, from doing their job. So you have a two-pronged problem. The muscle foundation is shrinking because it's not receiving the right growth signals, and the skin hammock is losing its integrity because the surrounding environment is too inflammatory. This is why you can do thousands of reps of tiny movements and see zero change. You aren't addressing the cellular environment. You are just tiring out the muscle without giving it the instruction to rebuild. To change the arm, you have to change the instruction set. We need to focus on high-tension, low-repetition loading that actually forces the muscle fibers to engage and the skin to tighten. This is the physiological key. I need to stop you right here because I know what you've been told. You've likely heard for decades that if you want to tighten up, you need to use the lightest weights possible and do hundreds of repetitions. The burn is what matters, right? We've all seen the classes with the pink 2-pound dumbbells where everyone is pulsing their arms to music. I want to be incredibly candid with you. That approach is fundamentally broken for the 60-plus body. Doing hundreds of tiny movements with no resistance isn't toning. It's just exhausting. In fact, if you're already dealing with age-related muscle fiber loss, that burn you feel is often just inflammatory stress on your tendons, not a growth signal to your muscles. It's a total waste of your energy. Most seniors get stuck in this loop for years thinking they're doing something good, only to wake up one day and realize their arms look exactly the same, or worse. This is the low-threshold trap. Your body is smart. It's an efficiency machine. If you give it a low-intensity task, it figures out how to do it with as little energy as possible. It won't build new muscle tissue, and it certainly won't trigger the collagen repair needed to pull that skin taut. To actually see a change, you need to break that pattern of constant light movement and replace it with a stimulus that forces your nervous system to wake up those dormant muscle fibers. You need to stop thinking about toning and start thinking about structural load. It's the difference between rearranging the furniture in a sinking house and actually fixing the foundation. Are you ready to see what the actual research says about how we can finally turn this around? Now that we have dismantled the myth of the high-rep workout, we need to focus on the second half of the equation, the skin itself. Dermal integrity, the actual firmness of your skin, is governed by a delicate balance of collagen production and the prevention of something called glycation. As we age past 55, our bodies become less efficient at neutralizing advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These are compounds formed when sugar molecules in your bloodstream attach to proteins like collagen and elastin. Think of it like caramelizing sugar on a stovetop. When those proteins get sugared, they become stiff, brittle, and lose their ability to snap back into shape. This is a massive, often overlooked contributor to skin sagging in the arms. To combat this, we have to support the skin from the inside out using a concept called nutritional scaffolding. This isn't just about taking a generic vitamin. It is about providing the specific precursors that your fibroblasts need to synthesize new collagen fibers. Vitamin C is often talked about, but in the context of skin firmness, it is only half the story. You need adequate zinc, copper, and amino acids, specifically proline and glycine. These are the bricks and mortar of your skin structure. When you combine high-tension, low-repetition loading with the right nutritional support, you create a synergistic effect. The loading stimulates the mechanical aspect of growth, signaling the muscle to build, while the nutrients provide the chemical support for the skin to anchor itself firmly to that new foundation. Without both, you are missing half the process. Many people focus on diet but ignore the mechanical loading, or they focus on the gym but ignore the nutritional needs of their collagen. Neither path works on its own. You must align your movement with your biology. This is the only way to truly reclaim the firm shape of your arms, and it is a strategy that can yield visible results in as little as 8 to 12 weeks. To understand why this approach works, we have to look at what the latest science tells us about the aging muscle-skin interface. A recent study published in the Journal of Gerontology and Geriatric Research highlighted a crucial finding regarding sarcopenia, the clinical term for the age-related loss of muscle mass. The researchers found that in adults over 60, simply increasing general physical activity was often insufficient to halt the atrophy of the triceps. Instead, the participants who saw the most significant improvements were those who utilized progressive resistance loading, meaning movements that focus on controlled, sustained tension rather than just speed or repetition. The study showed that this specific type of loading triggers a process called myokine release. Myokines are small signaling proteins secreted by muscle tissue that essentially act as messengers. When you load a muscle properly, it sends a chemical signal to the surrounding skin and connective tissue. That signal tells your fibroblasts, "We are building something structural here. Produce more collagen to anchor this support." This is the direct biological link between exercise and skin health that most people are never taught. Furthermore, a separate study from the Harvard Medical School Health Archives investigated the role of protein bioavailability in skin elasticity. They discovered that it isn't just the amount of protein you eat that matters, but the presence of specific amino acids that decline in availability after 60. When these levels are optimized alongside resistance training, the rate of dermal thinning effectively slows down. Think about that for a moment. Your skin isn't just a covering. It is a tissue that responds to the chemical environment created by your muscles. When you are sedentary or doing movements that don't challenge your muscles, your body essentially turns off the collagen production in that area because it senses there is no structural foundation to protect. But when you apply the right load, you are literally talking to your skin cells through your muscles. The science is clear. You have the power to change this environment, but it requires moving away from the light weights/high reps fallacy and toward a more precise, structured, and biologically informed method. So how do we put this into practice? We use a 3-phase protocol designed to bypass the limitations of aging muscle and directly trigger that structural repair I mentioned. Phase 1, pre-activation. Before you do any loading, you need to warm up the nerve-to-muscle connection. Don't just do arm circles. Instead, perform isometric holds. Place your hand against a sturdy wall and push, holding the contraction for 10 seconds. Focus entirely on feeling the triceps muscle, the back of the arm, tighten. This sends a neurological signal to wake up those dormant fibers. Do this 3 times per arm. Phase 2, progressive loading. This is where most people fail. You need to use a weight that is heavy enough that you could only realistically perform 8 to 12 repetitions before your form starts to falter. If you can easily do 30 reps, the weight is useless. Focus on a controlled 3-second lowering phase. The eccentric portion of the lift, the way down, is where the most significant muscle and collagen signaling occurs. Whether it's an overhead extension with a dumbbell or a modified push-up against a counter, focus on the descent. That is the moment of maximum biological signal. Phase 3. The nutritional anchor. Following your training, you must provide the raw materials for repair. Within 30 minutes of your loading session, aim for 20 grams of high-quality, leucine-rich protein. Leucine is the master switch for muscle protein synthesis. Combine this with a modest dose of vitamin C, even a simple glass of orange juice or a supplement, to facilitate the collagen synthesis we discussed. By anchoring your workout with these specific nutrients, you are essentially telling your body, I am building structure. Here are the bricks. Consistency here is key. You don't need to be in the gym for hours. 3 sessions per week, 20 minutes each, is more than enough to start seeing a shift. The secret is the intensity of the signal, not the duration of the movement. Stop the endless reps and start the deliberate load. You will feel the difference in your stability within weeks, and you will see the change in your skin tone as those underlying support structures finally begin to firm up. The journey to firmer, more functional arms isn't about fighting against your age. It's about learning to speak the language your body is using right now. You've spent over half a century building a life. It's time to ensure your body feels as capable and strong as the experiences you've gathered along the way. Remember, the sagging you see isn't a failure. It's simply a biological request for a different kind of signal. When you start implementing that 3-phase protocol, pre-activating those nerves, focusing on that controlled descent, and fueling with purpose, you are doing more than tightening skin. You are reclaiming your structural foundation. You are telling your body that you are still in charge of your own independence. If this explanation helped you see your own health in a new light, please share this video with a friend who might be struggling with the same questions. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. We're building a community here for anyone over 60 who knows that real, deep-dive health information shouldn't be a secret. It belongs to you. Keep listening to what your body is telling you. It's been your most loyal companion for decades. It's time to give it the support it deserves. I'll see you in the next one.